Before we dive into the show, if you're looking to make some picks on all your favorite sports this spring, you've got to check out Underdog Fantasy's Pick'em game. You just choose higher or lower between 2 to 8 players, and you can win up to 1,000 times your entry. If you click the link down below in the description and use our code RULE, that's RULE RULE, you'll get up to $1,000 in bonus cash and a free pick. On today's episode of The Unwritten Rule, we've got the Bama recap for you guys. Talked all about that game. Gave kind of our big points of emphasis from it, big takeaways. Kind of tried to give a larger overview just because I didn't want to go too in depth, just because the game had obviously happened already. So we gave just kind of our overarching takeaways and just kind of expanded from there. But dove into it, talked about everything. Mark Mitchell's big game, the defense, the really good offense for Mizzou, controlling the tempo, all that stuff. Kind of our main points, and then talked about what it means for Mizzou's bracketology, seeding, NCAA tournament, all that stuff. And, of course, looked ahead to Arkansas and a little bit of the rest of the SEC schedule as well. So a great breakdown on that end. Then we had quick hits, talk more Mizzou hoops, talked about the Dan Dakich thing with Tamar Bates in that segment. So that was pretty fun. Had some baseball talk as well. That's around the corner, and we are the Unwritten Rule, baseball term. So, had to do some baseball talk, of course, in quick hits. So great show for you guys. We'll dive right into it without further ado. The Unwritten Rule starts right now.
Marcel, where are you going with that disc? You are not putting that on again. Marcel, okay, if you press that button, you are in very, very big trouble.
Attention. Everybody stop what you're doing. It's time for The Unwritten Rule, a Mizzou sports podcast brought to you by the Believe Network, alongside Payton Haverman and Kenny Van Doren. Here is your host, Jack Knowlton.
Welcome back to the Unwritten Rule. Today is Friday, February 21st. And boy, oh boy, Payton, Kenny, what a game. The game of the year in college basketball as declared by Gabe DeArmond. Yes, I'm going to start with that. We have a fun one to dish. We're going to do some big takeaways from Mizzou, Alabama. It's obviously a couple days since the game ended, so we'll kind of get our big points in, and then we're going to talk about what this win for Mizzou kind of means in their larger tournament sphere and just outlook for the rest of the year, because it's looking up. But man, this was a big one. Missouri 110, Alabama 98. No other way to put it. Wednesday night at Mizzou Arena sounded like it was absolutely electric. For those that were in there, it quite literally was on fire after the game. Prevented Nate Oates, Alabama's coach, from doing his post-game press conference. Got through the opening statement, but it was on fire. The Tigers were on fire from the opening tip. I joked that if you're going to talk about this game, once again, you can't do it in the inverted pyramid style of journalism that we three Fair J school grads are accustomed to, because the beginning of this game was maybe the most important part. Mizzou 12-0 run, won by 12. There's a ton to talk about, but we're kind of encompass it all in one, like I said, because it's a bit after the game. We won't go too in the weeds. I'm sure everyone's looked up all the numbers. You all watched. It was a fun one. Big takeaways. Payton, where do you go to first? I'm going to give you the liberty of having your pick of the litter here, because there's a ton of stuff you can obviously point to that helped define this game for Mizzou. What would you like to talk about?
I'm gonna deviate off what I like to do, which is just pick out like individual players. I want to dictate just talk about the pace as a whole in this game. I think everyone kind of knew we were looking at probably a sprint for the entire 40 minutes. We all know how Missouri likes to play. They like to get out on the run, but Alabama is a team that arguably does it better than just about anyone else in the nation. They turn games into track meets. So I was interested to see maybe if Missouri would try and slow this down at a point, because I mean, Missouri obviously doesn't want to get out of what they're comfortable doing, but it's just ordinarily teams that try to run with Alabama are headed for a long night. But credit to Mizzou, they not only matched Alabama's pace in this one. I really think Missouri was the one that was kind of dictating the way this game was played. They just hit so many. I mean, Missouri literally never trailed for a second in this game. Alabama a crazy stat like I saw on Twitter and heard on the SEC 16 podcast. They have not led for a second of either of their last two games. So it kind of felt like you kind of felt it, especially in the second half as they were trying to get just back into the game. Alabama was playing like how they like to play. They were out on the run, but there was such an air of desperation behind it. I mean, Mark Sears would just kind of sprint up the court and try and just make the offense himself at times. Whereas Missouri, they were also getting out on the run. They were sprinting full force the entire 40 minutes, but it just felt like a more cohesive unit at times, and credit to Alabama. They were still making a ton of shots, especially late. I know they don't really like to play late in the shot clock, but they had to do it a few times, particularly in the first half, and made their shots. But I really think Missouri kind of dictated the tempo this was played at for almost the entire time. And I think that was really kind of, to me, other than maybe taking advantage of turnovers, which was what Jack and I talked about in the pregame a lot. That was what kind of stood out as the biggest key for Mizzou in this one.
Yeah, I wanted to build off like that pace of play and just controlling it, especially like early on. I've used this before. I used it earlier when I was talking to someone else. They were kind of just shooting like unconsciously at the beginning, and I think that's exactly what you wanted from this Missouri team. There's been instances where like you can go back to maybe the Ole Miss game where Ole Miss was getting like some deep threes off pretty early, and that's Ole Miss, Payton, not Mississippi State, and you kind of you could see from there that there was weren't really stopping it, and they weren't trapping anyone, but right off the get-go, Mizzou had full control of this game, and I think that just kind of shows you where this team was coming into it, and it even kind of just ties into the end of Dennis Gates going on the mic and saying don't storm the court. It just kind of in my mind, it's like Mizzou like realized that Alabama isn't better than Mizzou, and I think that's one of the things like this program is kind of put out there that they still ride the thing of being the underdog and shushing the media and not letting things define them. But I think they also just kind of comprehend that, that they can compete with the big dogs. And I've said this before. I think there's only one game this season that you could say, yeah, Mizzou lost that game. And that was Auburn. There was opportunities to beat Texas, opportunities to beat Tennessee and Texas A&M. And a lot of those games were really close. But this team has just competed with everyone. And I think this one was a true eye-opener of where this team's ceiling is. And call me stupid. The ceiling's the Final Four. That's just this team can compete with anyone, it seems, and they're competing with anyone in the best conference of college basketball this season. And I even call it like a high of like watching this past game or recency bias, but this team had the number 4 team in the country come in and just handled them the entire game, and that's just something you would have never expected from Mizzou, and that really just plays into your point, Payton. Just controlling that pace and just forcing Alabama to take those deep shots. And other than Mark Sears, if you subtract him from the equation, this Mizzou just manhandled Alabama.
I mean, first of all, Kenny, I'm glad you brought up the Gates thing. I thought that was great. I wish in the press conference he said the right answer. Also, I love this narrative, and I can't take credit for this take. Shout out to our friend Jack Sobel, former beat writer of Mizzou. I love that coaches and ADs and people are gaslighting fans into thinking that the fines from court storming come from the NIL collectives. I think it's a great strategy if you want that to stop, I guess. Maybe a little bit of
I found it more so that he was saying that, any money that isn't going to paying for court storming would just go to NIL is how I kind of comprehended it. He's saying like any money that the athletic department has saved over will get them a center next year.
Either way,
I was going to say, like $500,000, that gets you like a good backup at least in the SEC.
Somehow, I think if Mizzou continues to be good enough, the money for the reinforcements the next season will find its way into the coffers. I'm not too worried about that from that perspective. But I love that he said that. I wish he doubled down in the press conference. I think he said the right answer, but I wish he said exactly that. We're a top 15 team. We just beat a top 15 team. Alabama's not our rival. There's no other reason to storm the court here. We're as good as they are, and we're a Final Four good team. I completely agree with you, Kenny, that we're a Final Four good team. And to just put some other context on Payton's larger point here, Alabama I've watched every single game they've played. They have never, not one time said or looked that shell-shocked on the road. They've beaten 3 top 15 SEC teams on the road. one of those was in Rupp Arena. They beat Texas A&M on the road. They beat Mississippi State on the road, a thing Mizzou, of course, knows a thing or two about too. That was by far the worst they've looked. They don't start games well, but I mean, it was they just looked completely baffled and overwhelmed by that atmosphere and by what Mizzou was doing. So from a control the game standpoint, Payton, I think you're completely right. They did it on both ends. And I think for me, more importantly, they switched how they did it, right? Offensively, they averaged 1.4 points per possession in both halves. And they did it with the shooting in the first half. And then in the second half, they did it with getting to the line. They didn't make a lot of free throws, which probably helped Alabama cut that lead down to 6 twice. But they did it in the second half by getting to the line and feeding, their guys inside and finding other ways to score when Alabama, made some adjustments defensively to try and shut their water off from deep. So I think in that element of control, that was big as well. Just the style in which Mizzou goes into a point we continue to hammer. They can play these different styles. They can change things up and still absolutely excel on offense. So I think that's a good big takeaway. Kenny, where would you like to go from there? What else did you love from this game?
Yeah, I think the guy we have to start with is definitely Mark Mitchell. Out of anyone that just performed well in this game, 31 points. And when you get a guy that comes in from the transfer portal from Duke, of all places, true blue blood, finds his best fit after it really just didn't work out there at the end. And McDonald's All-American from the area. I think that was just massive. And you expected a lot from Mark Mitchell. And he maybe at times didn't have his best performances just early on in the season, but definitely got into a flow into SEC play. And like, okay, this is the guy that Mizzou, was calling upon. And then a career high, 31 points. And I saw some Duke fans on social media saying, where was this at Duke? And, you can't expect, every Duke player to be like, Grayson Allen or one of those great Duke players.
Wow, that
are you kidding?
No, we can't let that slide.
We're not going any further off of what you
No,
just
no,
said.
no,
Did
no,
you
no,
just
no.
say Grayson Allen?
Grayson
When you think of like Duke players like from the past 20 years, 2 decades, I think it sounds so. Yeah, so I think
Dude.
he was in. I mean, Mark Mitchell.
People
was
in the comments do not let that slide.
Mark
If you're not
Mitchell.
going to comment anything else, make fun of Kenny for that. Okay, go ahead, Kenny.
Mark Mitchell was a force against Oklahoma. And like I said, it wasn't like he was playing against non-con. It felt like he was playing against high schoolers. Like he was just dominating anyone in his path. And then he does it against the number 4 team in the country in Alabama. There was that one play that made it on Sports Center where Grill passes the ball behind his back. And then in the paint, Mark Mitchell, hits him with some pump fakes and then gets the ball in while he's underneath the basket. And it's just those kind of things where he just had magnets in the ball. Like that's just how it was. That's how he was playing. 18 points in that first half, 13 points in the second half, just not slowing down at all. 8 from 11 from the field. In that first half, just got Mizzou on the right pace. You have to be very comfortable with what you're seeing from Mark Mitchell, especially like getting this deep into SEC play and then getting into the conference tournament and then the NCAA tournament. If Mizzou makes it that far, we don't know if ESPN will approve of that. But yeah, I think if you're a Mizzou fan, you have to feel confident in just how Mark Mitchell performed, because I mean, there's going to be stretches where he doesn't step up and, put up like, 25 plus points. Then you have a Tamar Bates on your team. You have a Caleb Grill on the bench. Caleb Grill had 25 points in this game. I think Mizzou fans should feel like they're in a good spot scoring wise.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it, Kenny. I think especially with Mark Mitchell, just kind of how putting him into perspective. I mean, Mark Mitchell is like one of the points like where you look at and it's like, okay, that's like what you feel like the portal should be used for. It was like just kind of an awkward fit at Duke. He comes to Missouri. It's a better fit for him. It's worked out better. It's worked out great for Duke. It's worked out great for Mark Mitchell, and it's worked out really, really well for Missouri as well. Man, I just, between Mark Mitchell and Jesus Carolero, I mean, we got to be keeping an eye on North Carolina basketball programs for forwards in the portal. I mean, that's just back-to-back huge contributions in that department. But no, I think you nailed it, Kenny. I mean, Mark Mitchell has just been all world for Missouri. I cannot say how much I adore having Mark Mitchell on this team. I mean, he's just basically like, it's just like watching Kobe Brown again. I mean, the 3-point shooting isn't as good, obviously, but I would counter with that. I think Mark Mitchell is probably a better presence around the rim. And like you said, Kenny, he's not going to be flawless every night. There's going to be matchups that are tough for him. Auburn, Janai Broom was just way too much for Mitchell at times. Tennessee gave him troubles, but I mean, like you said, there are going to be games like Oklahoma where he sets a career high. A week later, he just abuses Grant Nelson and Cliff Omarui. I don't know how you say it, Milton.
It's just Amore.
Omori.
Like that's Amore.
Yeah, just
go.
abused that front court for Alabama. I mean, this is what you bring a guy from a blue blood like Duke in to be. Like, this is what you're hoping for, where he shines on stages like that. And like you said, Kenny, it doesn't have to be Mark Mitchell and Caleb Grill every night. Some nights it'll be Tamar Bates. Some nights it'll be Tony Perkins. Some nights it'll be Trent Pierce. We've seen it, is capable of going off for double digits. What did he say?
Jacob Cruz as he coughed. That was good, Kenny. You got that. It sounded like
that was really good. I'll say this, like, it's a tangent, but like Jacob Cruz, 5 points. They were 5 massive points. I mean, like it was back-to-back possessions, if I'm not mistaken, when Alabama had cut it down to 6. So I think you kind of nailed it, Kenny. There's going to be scoring from anywhere. And maybe you get into that question of, well, when the game's on the line, like it was against A&M, who takes the shot? Probably just a situation of feeding the hot hand for Missouri. Some nights it'll be Mitchell. Other nights it'll probably be Bates or Grill or something like that. But I do agree with you, Kenny. I think that Missouri is in really good hands scoring-wise.
I'll point out one thing about Mark Mitchell as well, just on top of the scoring. 7 from 9 from the free throw line in the second half is a good look. I still think 8 for 12. There's always room for improvement, I think, but I think that's like 67%. So it's still a number that you want to see pushed up, but you can't nitpick 31 points in an SEC game, especially against a top 4 team like that. But I think 7 for 9 is definitely good. I think second half free throws are always bigger, in my opinion. Of course, I mean, all the points are free, and you can always like look back and say like, oh, you should have made those 2 in the first half. But 7 for 9 is definitely a good look in the second half when it comes down to when you really need them.
And I just want him to hit the and ones. I mean, I think he had like 4 or 5 and ones last night, and he missed the first 2, I remember. But I mean, he's been getting to the line so much. Like, obviously he's going to miss a few, but I agree, Kenny. It's just kind of grasping at straws when you're analyzing a 31-point performance.
Yeah, I don't want to. Well, no, I do want to toot my own horn here. I'm not going to deny it. I talked about it in the pregame. I feel like every time I thought about this game, when I looked at Alabama, I didn't really know what answers they could maybe have for Mark Mitchell. He just creates a mismatch on whoever is guarding him, because if you put someone with a similar build on him, they have to defend incredibly physically without fouling. And you look at like a guy like Mohamed Diabate, also 6'9" for Alabama, got him fouled out of the game. You look at Amore and Nelson, both bigger than Mitchell, and he can be skilled. Like Payton said, he's got that Kobe Brown craftiness around the rim where he can just use his skill, use a little bit of quickness. I think Mizzou deserves a lot of credit offensively too for kind of scheming him open. I mean, there was a couple. I think he had dunks on back-to-back possessions in the first half at one point where he just is sneaking around defenders. He was coming off of screens. I thought Mizzou was running a lot of good stuff from him. So it didn't shock me. It also doesn't shock me because Mark Mitchell is now the 5th player, I believe, that Alabama has allowed to get a career high on them this season. So didn't even surprise me that it was that much, because it's probably going to be somebody. But I think you guys nailed it. I don't have too much more to add other than, he just absolutely rinsed every defender that was on him. I'll add in a thing about Grill, and then I'll make my point. But I just think, to have Alabama's 2 starting front court players combined for 4 rebounds and to get 10 from Caleb Grill just goes back to the point where he is so much more than this sharpshooting guy, this Jack Golke. I'm not trying to downplay Jack Golke. I love Jack Golke, March Madness darling, but like, that's what he was for Oakland. He made a bunch of threes and it was great. Caleb Grill is so much more than that. Caleb Grill is a plus defender. Caleb Grill, you saw the pass. You guys brought it up. The behind the back passes he makes. He had a nice take in the second half. I can't remember if he got fouled on it, but it was just a nice layup. He just was able to shoot the gap in Alabama's defense. Like, he gives you so much more off the bench than just a hot shooter, and it is teams cannot account for it. If you do not have a top 20 type defense, he's gonna torch you. And Mizzou is, you guys might know off the top of your head. I mean, I think is it 12 points where they're undefeated every time he scores more than like 12 or 15 or whatever it is.
I believe the number's 15 for
15.
him. Yeah.
So, I mean, to just have that guy like that, I mean, he's the 6th man of the year in the SEC. He has to be. I mean, it is so.
I would like, is there a national 6th man of the year? I can't
actually
imagine.
don't know that.
I can't imagine that there would be anyone else that's been more impactful. And I really don't care if there has been. I think Caleb Grill should be a shoo-in. Yeah, it's 6th man for the SEC. I think that's like not even debatable at this point. I don't know who Auburn's bringing off the bench game in and game out. I know they're super
Todd
deep.
Pettiford.
Yeah, it's not Caleb Grill. I mean, we're talking about a guy that has arguments to be on an all SEC team, like one of the teams in general, that is coming off the bench for them.
Yeah, I just think he's an exceptional player. I think you guys hit it with Mark Mitchell. My big point, it feels almost weird to say this, because I think if you had told me Alabama's going to shoot 54% from the field, 41% from three, Missouri's only going to make like 60% of its free throws, I probably would have said, oh, I don't know. I mean, but my point's going to be the defense. I think it has to be. And I think it goes back to the beginning of the game. Like, these teams are coming into Mizzou Arena knowing exactly what they cannot do against Missouri, and Missouri still does it. I mean, it's on the defensive end. Like, I was thinking about how balanced Mizzou was. Like, Payton, I feel like you and I have these conversations all the time. We go back and forth about which side of the ball is better for Missouri, and I think that speaks to how balanced they are. But to impose your will like that, to force 10 first half turnovers. Yes, Alabama averaged 1.4 points per possession in the second half. But you know what? They only had four turnovers. 2 of them came with under a minute to go in a time when they were coming back and trying to get a couple of threes to kind of cut that thing down. And yet, the last real highlight of the game was Tamar Bates stealing it and having a wide open layup. So the turnovers may have been timely in the second half, but I thought they were fantastic. I mean, we had, what was it? 5 points? No, it was 5 free throw attempts, because I think Mizzou might have missed one from Alabama had to commit a clear path foul because they threw it away on an inbound play. And Nate Oates had one timeout.
Punching a clipboard.
Yeah, Nate Oates broke a clipboard. He had one timeout in the second half because he had to use them because they couldn't get the ball inbounds. I mean, it was suffocating. I know Alabama kind of figured it out as a good offense is going to. This is number 2 offense in the country. Like, they're going to score points. It's what they do. But I thought it never felt close. Like, they were so flustered. And I think it's just as a credit to this defensive identity for Mizzou that they're going to turn you over. They had 12 steals, and that was the biggest point of emphasis for Alabama coming in. Now, again, knowing what I know, there's some execution stuff on their end that they failed at. But I think Missouri deserves so much credit for just teams know them now. They know what they can do defensively, and they still are able to do it. And I think it's a testament to that. The player I'm going to throw in there too is Anthony Robinson. Another great game from him, 14 points, steals. I mean, love it.
Yeah. I mean, you said it best there, Knowlton. I mean, teams come into Mizzou Arena or just come into a game against Missouri knowing that they're going to try and turn them over, and they know who is going to try and turn them over in particular, and they still let them do it. I mean, it was Tamar Bates getting 4 again, Caleb Grill with 3, Ant Robinson with 3. It's the big 3 that are always creating these havoc defensive plays, and they still are able to get it done. And like you said, Anthony Robinson, special shout out to him. He had an excellent game, literally did not miss a 2-point attempt, was just lethal from the mid-range. And he had 3 fouls in the first half. Dennis Gates still trusted him to play a bulk of that second half. Did not foul out. Very, very good job for Ant Robinson, especially considering the guy he had to guard most of the night. But no, you're absolutely right, Knowlton. It's weird to praise the defense in a game where you gave up 98 points in 40 minutes. But I mean, 21 points off of turnovers, that is the difference in the game. I would say that is more of the difference than the free throw differential, because both of these teams were always going to get to the line a ton, considering how they play and the amount of times they get to the line in general. So 100% agree with you. The defense does at least deserve praise because, like you said, everybody in the world pointed at the turnover disparity between these two teams and said that's going to be something Alabama has to rein in. Alabama themselves obviously knew it, still didn't get it done.
It's worth pointing out too that one guy had over a third of their points too, in Mark Sears, who was kind of shooting it from Chillicothe and
Lawrence,
City.
Kansas was one I saw.
Yeah, just shooting it from everywhere, and he was just, especially in the second half, he just would not let Alabama get out of that game. And his credit goes to Mark Sears for how good of a basketball player he is. And shout out Muscle Shoals.
Shout out Muscle Shoals. There you go, Kenny. I am on the Alabama front. It is fun to watch Mark Sears play basketball. He's fun. Lefty too, fellow lefty. But you want to know what? This is maybe the biggest compliment I feel like you can give to Alabama has an All-American guard on its team. And you know what a question I was asked about this game was, how does Alabama in the future deal with guards who are more athletic than them? They were noticing. I mean, Anthony Robinson used his length. Tamar Bates used his length. I mean, they were imposing their will. I felt like that was a good compliment you can give to those guys because they absolutely exploited mismatches. And yeah, they turned Alabama the hell over. And a clipboard was the casualty of that, unfortunately. For Nate Oates and they'll need to replace that in the budget, I guess. But yeah, this was a huge win for Mizzou. I think there's good big takeaways, gentlemen. You could go on about this game for an hour, but I know we need to talk kind of what it means territory, because I'm going to stand on my soapbox a little bit here. Payton, I will defer to you first though, because I know you've already looked at it all. Numbers wise, metrically, Mizzou's going to go to Arkansas next. They have a schedule remaining that you look on paper and you look at these games and you look at where they're standing in the SEC and you just wonder, how close can they get to that double bye? Where are they at numbers wise first though, Payton, with how they rose from a big win like this?
I believe in the net they're up to 9. That's the one I didn't check explicitly. Torvik has them all the way up to 8. 8, man. 8! 8! And Ken Palm has them at 12. So just monumental stuff. And
they're 13 in the net, by the way. 13.
Yeah, so the 13 in the net. So I was way off. But it is kind of funny because, just looking at the schedule, Missouri, everyone is saying Missouri's got kind of one of the easier finishes to the schedule in the SEC. And you still look at a couple games like at Arkansas or at Vanderbilt, and you're like, well, Arkansas is going to be playing for its life. Vanderbilt is tough at home. But so, the double bye is by no means a sure thing. They still aren't even currently slated into it because A&M has the tiebreaker over them.
Look at this conference, dude.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But Missouri, if they're able to finish 5-0, I would almost be floored if they don't have a top 4 seed based off of that.
I was going to say that that's kind of where I wanted to take that is that in play? Because I think it is.
No, it absolutely. They just beat number 4 in the nation. They went on the road and beat number 2 in the nation. They are still the only home loss for Florida this year. On any given night, Missouri can beat anyone in the country. I 100% believe that. Kenny alluded to it earlier. I agree with him completely. The ceiling on this team is Final Four. If they are on it on any given night, they can beat anyone in the country, including Auburn. I wouldn't bet on them to beat Auburn if they played again, but if Missouri plays like they did last night, they catch Auburn a little off balance, they could absolutely beat Auburn. So double bye, I think, is absolutely the goal now. I don't know if I'd quite say expectation because right now they're still outside looking in, but they've got a relatively soft landing on their schedule. I think this team is absolutely locked in and motivated to get the double bye. So I think the odds favor it right now.
Kenny, where are you at future casting Missouri?
Yeah, I think
Yes, I use that word strategically.
I think 4-5 range. 4 to 6 is, I feel like that's where people expect it. I think this is. I remember we were looking at teams that could make like a run in the SEC tournament now, and like, oh, is Florida going to win the SEC tournament while Auburn wins the SEC regular season? And now you're kind of looking at, oh, maybe Mizzou has an opportunity to make a run in the SEC tournament. See how that one kind of lays out, and see how that how the tournament just field looks when it comes there, and see if there is a good path for Mizzou to make it that far. But when you look at the top 4 in the SEC, and if you're watching with us on the YouTube, you can see it: 12-1 Auburn, 10-3 Florida, 10-3 Alabama, 9-4 A&M, and 9-4 Missouri. I mean, who would have thought that Mizzou would? The teams above them in the SEC, they beat 2 of them, and then they lost to one of them on practically a buzzer beater with like literally no time left to score after that 3-pointer against Texas A&M. And that is a weird thing to like think about, and it kind of just shows you like how like tight the SEC is too. Like Tennessee is right behind Mizzou, and Tennessee edged out a win against Mizzou. So it just kind of just furthers how good the SEC is this year. And I wish this standing and we're looking at on ESPN had BPI, because I am interested to see if Missouri would make it into the CIT, maybe.
I think didn't they jump into the, what are they, like 36th in BPI?
They're 31.
31.
Number 31 in basketball power index.
They have the 31 best basketball power. That's what that means. Yeah, Kenny, sorry, did we interrupted you with BPI? Or is that all you had?
That's all I had.
Okay. The Arkansas game, so that's up next, 7 p.m., by the way. Do we have a network? I don't think we have a network. I'm not seeing a network. That hasn't been TV assigned.
ESPN2 on SEC Network last night.
I think I'm looking at
a graphic, but I don't think it
hasn't been TV assigned. What the hell? How am I supposed to do these game announcements if we can't assign our TV games?
Yeah.
Maybe ESPN2, who knows? We'll find out, I guess, on Saturday or Friday. Maybe when you're listening to this, you'll know. But anyway, they play Arkansas next. I mean, you can look like, I know it's not everything, but the, little ESPN analytics. What?
Regular ESPN.
It's just on ESPN?
According to the Mizzou basketball schedule on the Missouri website.
There you go.
I don't know if that's right.
Yeah,
I haven't seen that announced anywhere.
I'm gonna fact check you.
That'd be cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'll fact check you while I'm saying this. But yeah, it's at 7, maybe on ESPN. Kenny, I think you're right, actually, because Kentucky Alabama's at 5 on ESPN, and there's no other 7 p.m. ESPN assigned game. So maybe they got the prime time. Anyway, I know it's not everything. You look at that matchup projector, it's giving Arkansas a 54% chance to win. It's similar kind of vibes to Georgia a couple games ago when Mizzou went down there. This is an Arkansas team that, yes, is playing for its life. You think, they had 2 narrow losses to A&M and Auburn in its last 2 games, lost by 7 to Auburn, lost by, I think, 8 to A&M, crushed LSU, lost to Bama by 4, lost to Texas by 8, beat Kentucky. Like, this is a team that's played pretty much its last 7-8 games all close or won them against some pretty good teams. Cal can still work some magic. They're going to be juiced up at home. It's, their rival, whether they want to admit it or not, I guess. It's a little bit tricky. This is again where we talk about, the letdown games. And Mizzou, I'm trying to remember before Texas who they played. I can't remember off the top of my head, but like avoiding that letdown game is going to be big. Vanderbilt on the road is going to be big. But they can run the table. It's right there in front of them because a lot of the teams ahead of them have to play each other. I don't know if you guys have any just lingering thoughts on Arkansas, but that's where I stand. The Razorbacks, they played them at home, got out to a big lead, kind of trickled back, but never really had a shot. Thiero's a good player. Trevin Brazil's on the team.
Yeah, Missouri had just the week before Texas had beaten Florida and this Arkansas.
And Arkansas, okay.
So, look, it's a pretty much a carbon copy of last week. Georgia was absolutely playing for its season, and Missouri really responded well after a shaky first half. It wouldn't shock me if Missouri kind of struggles in this one as well. Arkansas, particularly defensively, has been a lot better. They held Auburn in check for a lot of that game. Arkansas was beating Auburn with 3 minutes to go before Auburn just became Auburn down the stretch. One thing that just kind of stood out that when I was watching this, or when I was looking at the box score from the first game, Ivisic really did well against Missouri. He was definitely their best player, 6 for 9 from the field, 2 for 5 from deep, had 10 rebounds. He is coming off an 0 for 10 game against Auburn, 0 for 9 from deep.
He's due.
So he's due. Mizzou did such a great job against Thiero and Boogie Flan the first time. That's going to have to be the recipe for success again, I think.
No Fland.
No Fland in this? Oh, yeah, he is
Fland's
hurt.
out for
I
the
forgot
year.
about that. So that certainly helps, but Thiero's also a hell of a player. But like you said, Knowlton, they've got a Hall of Fame coach over there. He still can probably work a little magic. You're going into a hostile environment. Arkansas, again, needs this one pretty desperately. They're right on the bubble right now. I still feel pretty confident with Mizzou. I don't expect this team to really have big letdowns anymore. I think they know what they're playing for as well. I think Missouri's still got plenty to play for. So I think they'll be pretty motivated in this one.
I chose this game as a loss. This one paired with Alabama. That's not going to happen, I don't think, in my mind. I'll take the loss on that one. The only thing I want to throw out there is just how Trevin Brazile has been playing this season, and it's I'm not trying to
hate
throw him
segment.
under the bus. I just want people to know he's just not the same player anymore. And this game is on ESPN. I did check the full schedule.
Look at that.
He's only eclipsed 10 points 3 times this season. 15 against Michigan, which I believe was his last tweet, was after that game. Central Arkansas and then North Carolina A&M. Since then, he hasn't. He's maxed out at 9 points, and then that 9 points was against Oakland on December 30th. So it's been definitely a tough go for the former Mizzou Tiger, and he's in his junior season, 4th season of college basketball. I don't know if this is his final game against Mizzou ever. Maybe they hit each other in the tournament. Maybe he does come back next season. I just don't really know at this point. But I mean, maybe there is, some magic from Trevin Brazile just in that this could be his final game against Mizzou, which program he hates.
We're gonna put that in the world.
I hate that you even put that out there.
Yeah, that's in the world now. Great. That's great.
I
might edit that out, actually. I might edit that out. If you're hearing this, it means I lost an argument.
If this is it, Trevin Brazile, it's not been a pleasure.
It's been a time.
When high school or football recruits that are just at that game, just as visitors, and realize how much Mizzou fans hate a guy that they don't even know the name of. They were just telling me oh yeah, number 4. I could tell Mizzou fans did not like that guy. I think he used to go to Mizzou or something. It's it really shows you how much it's just both parties just dislike each other now.
Yeah. Intense dislike. It is I know Arkansas fans don't like to admit it. There is something there between Mizzou and Arkansas. I really do believe that, especially on the basketball court. I mean, it gets kind of intense at times.
Florida's got to play Bama, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M. Bama has to play Tennessee, Florida, and Auburn. Texas A&M has to play Tennessee, Florida, Auburn. I almost said and LSU. I thought there was a little number by their name. And the Volunteers, like I said, A&M, Alabama, Ole Miss. That's everyone who's kind of around Mizzou in that charge for the top 4. A lot of numbers there. There's a prime opportunity here. It's got to start with a win at Arkansas. I will be shocked. I will be really, really impressed if Mizzou goes in there and blows the doors off of them. That is the thing that will raise the ceiling for me, because one, I think you got to give Arkansas a little bit of respect, for the reasons we just talked about. But 2, they just have been playing good basketball. They've played really good league competition, close, and beaten who they're supposed to have beaten over the past 2-3 weeks. So I do like Mizzou here. It's going to be a hell of a job for Calipari if he can rally them from 2 tough losses. I mean, that A&M, the stuff he was saying after A&M, I thought they were going to get boat raced at Auburn, because he was like, we need to have a heart-to-heart. That was a Final Four game. I think he called Auburn a Final Four game too for them. So he's making NCAA tournament illusions. There's going to be some weirdness in this game. But if Mizzou can just get out of there with a win, you got to feel real good then going forward. So Mizzou, Arkansas, 7 p.m. ESPN. Kenny confirms on the 22nd on Saturday. So lock in for that one. We sure will be. What a win over Alabama. And lock into the rest of the show because we're going to finish it now with quick hits. Okay, quick hits time. We'll finish out the show. We got jerseys of the week. You best believe we're going to have some more hoop talk in jerseys of the week. Foreshadowing. Kenny, your jersey of the week.
My jersey of the week goes to Caleb Grill. Had a little NIL commercial with Sticklin and Sticklin. If you've ever been a bar crawler in downtown Columbia, you've definitely walked past this building right outside
Payton.
of Harpo's at 1 a.m. Sorry, bars close at 1 a.m. for some reason. And very fun. It's very ESPN-esque if you haven't seen it. I can retweet it on our account as well, just so anyone that has Twitter or X can go on there and check it out. But Sticklin law firm, Chance Sticklin used to go to Mizzou, so shout out to him. I know his younger brother did as well, but he was in KCOU. Big journalism guy.
Big
journalism guy.
Shout out Sticklin. I used to know a guy who lived, I think, below Sticklin and Sticklin. Like there's like an apartment under there. So,
Oh yeah. It's like underground.
Yeah. There's a couple of lurking apartments underneath the fair businesses of Columbia, Missouri. Shout out to Caleb Grill. Payton, what's your jersey of the week, sir?
Jersey of the week, yes, sir.
Yes,
Gonna
sir.
Give it to you.
Fire up.
Xavier Pinson, the Osceola Magic, who I believe, if I'm somehow not mistaken, the G League affiliate
Correct,
of the Orlando
Payton. They're
Magic.
the Hornets affiliate in the G League.
Very funny. They have added, they tweeted this just a day ago, February 19th. Official, the Magic have added Xavier Pinson from the available player pool. Pinson previously signed with the Magic during the 2024 AmeriCup qualifiers in November. Welcome back to Osceola, Xavier. Yes, folks, Xavier Pinson is playing some G League ball now. I have no idea what the available player pool is or how any of that works. But the point is, Xavier Pinson, league him.
He's in the he's one step closer to the league. Yeah, I don't think we need to get into a discussion of the way
Nope,
G-League
we've done it to death at this point.
Work, but congrats to Xavier Pinson, his second stint. Hopefully, it's more fruitful from the first. Kenny, you don't want to retweet that on the account? I think you should.
What's the
Kenny,
AmeriCup qualifiers?
I don't know.
I don't know either. I should know, but I don't know.
Kenny, congratulate Xavier Pinson.
Retweet it on the account, or at least give it a like. Wow. My jersey of the week, and if you didn't see this and you're part of the Mizzou community, you're in for some fun lore. I got a story I got a yarn to spin for you. My jersey of the week is going to Tamar Bates, and here's why. So the morning of the Alabama game, I wake up to a feature story from The Athletic. I need to pull it up, and I will find who wrote it because I'm blanking on their name, but I will give them a shout out by the end of the show. Feature story in The Athletic on Dennis Gates and how he kind of resurrected the 0-19 season. We all know the story, of course. And in it, they talked about Tamar Bates and bringing him in from Indiana, of course, I guess last season. And there was kind of some questioning about his character publicly, specifically from is it Dakich? Dan Dakich? Dakich?
I thought it was Dakich.
Dakich?
I could be wrong. Yeah.
I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but he's an ESPN guy who I guess, or former ESPN guy who went to Indiana, tweeted back in February 2024, IUBB media clamoring for Tamar Bates at Missouri. Told you about Bates from the moment he entered the IU weight room with his family. No chance to win with him. His at Mizzou Hoops team has not won a game in the SEC. For 20 years, I've told you about at Indiana MBB, and I've never been wrong. Well, he was wrong. The unwritten rule, let's just say, got wind of this tweet and quote tweeted it. And that unleashed a firestorm that started with some Mizzou Twitter members quote tweeting it. It also led to Dakich saying, I 1000% stand by this. After the Alabama game, it ended with Dennis getting asked about the tweet. And he said, Dan must have been talking about something else because Tamar is a wonderful leader. And you can definitely win with him, as Mizzou has proven this season. So, yeah, idiotic take. He's replying to people, just making it worse. But shout out to Tamar Bates for that. He's my jersey of the week, proving the doubters wrong. Dennis actually had a really good quote about it too.
Yeah, I would encourage people to go find it. He raves about Tamar's character. I'm so confused what Tamar Bates could have possibly done to just warrant kind of the hate he gets here from Dan Dakich. I know Tamar Bates was not always it wasn't always like a great time for him up in Indiana. He had a lot of struggles up there, just on the court. But I mean, this guy's a father now. I mean, he seems like the quintessential leader. It just seems like an all around. And Kenny, if you're watching on the YouTube, pulled up the quote. Thank you. This is from Callum McAndrew, friend of the show. Dennis Gates on the tweet from Dakich. Quote, I don't approve of anyone directly attacking a great leader, a great young man, a dude who has never gotten in trouble, a guy that has done everything I have asked. I don't know who he's talking about. He may be confusing somebody for somebody else. And it's a longer answer than that, too. And I agree. I don't know how you could possibly question anything Tamar Bates has done for Mizzou. I think he is arguably the most important part of kind of this whole turnaround. Obviously, Caleb Grill coming back and being the player he is, and Mark Mitchell coming in and being the player he is helps a lot. But I mean, Tamar kind of seems like the heart and soul of this team. It seems like he gets along with just about everybody. I mean, we've never heard, I think, anything about anything he could possibly have wrong with his character. So very strange takes from Dan Dakich, especially as Mizzou is a program that seems to be on the up and up, and Indiana starts to look more and more like the Nebraska football of basketball.
Ooh. Ouch. Fighting words. Yeah. This was just a Mizzou Twitter coming together day, and it was just very fun to witness. And I think it needs to be appreciated. So Jersey of the Week to Tamar Bates. Very funny saga. Glad Dennis
I
was
like
asked
no
about
cap, and
it.
he's the main bird.
Next up, you heard from Shawnee. It's the Shawnee's main bird of the week. Kenny, your Shawnee's main bird of the week.
Shawnee's main bird of the week goes to Max Scherzer. He is a Blue Jay officially. It happened a couple weeks ago. We talked about it, but here's your first look at him in the Blue Jays garb.
He just ignored
it. What'd you say?
I said, "What's your bird connection?" I was just
my bad. Yeah, he played for the Mets.
Oh.
But yeah, here's Mad Max. Watch this on YouTube. He's happy Max, not mad. Can't really tell his eyes are different colors if you didn't know.
Remember when he made a surprise appearance at the Border War in 2022? That was so cool.
Back.
That was very sick.
That was awesome.
Very sick. Congrats to Max. Good luck with the Blue Jays. Payton.
Blue Jays. My bird of the week. I'm gonna stick with baseball because baseball's back. On the day we're recording this, Thursday the 20th, the Cubs and Dodgers played a spring training game. And it looks like Kenny is just now discovering that Vidal Brujan is a Cub. Yes, Kenny, and I don't think you remember who they traded him for. It was even funnier. They traded him for Matt Mervis. So my bird connection, if Kenny would like to scroll down to the Cubs relievers, is that Brooks Kriske pitched in this game for the Cubs. He pitched 1 inning, struck out 2, walked 1. He previously pitched in 2021. He pitched in 4 games for the Orioles. So yeah, baseball's back. I just wanted to get that out there. The Cubs won 12-4. There's my ironclad connection. Brooks Kriske was once an Oriole.
Wow.
And now he is a Cub, and he pitched in this game.
How are you two feeling? Wow, he just kicked him out of the chat. Okay, Kenny, how are you feeling about the Astros season? I was going to ask about the Cubs too, but I guess not.
No, I don't know why he left. Yeah, I think the Astros, I think there's an argument to be made that there are parts of this team that are definitely better than last season, but you also don't have Alex Bregman. You don't have a Kyle Tucker. So I'm interested to see where this team goes. Lucky enough for the Astros, they play in the AL West. And there's a team in the AL West that thinks it's 2019. And then there's a team in the AL West that has a GM that likes to trade every single player he owns. So I think the Astros are definitely in a good spot to compete for a
pennant
for the title, but I don't know how far that team will go.
Payton, Cubs preview?
Not optimistic, Jack. I'll be honest with you. I am not looking forward to this season. I really am not. They traded for Kyle Tucker, and in the 1 year they're going to have Kyle Tucker, they're having a starting pitcher like their spots in the rotation are being competed for by Colin Ray, Javier Assad, Chris Flexen, three just terrible pitchers. I'm not excited for this. Oh my God, I didn't know that. If you're watching on the YouTube, Kenny
boy,
just
we're in
pulled
the
up
baseball
Dixon
weeds.
Machado. And we're losing viewers fast the more we talk about stuff like this. So I'm not going to go any
Well, you don't
further, but
live up to the true origin of the unwritten rule name for a little bit.
yeah.
I asked you guys for baseball previews. This is my question.
Yeah, no,
I
I do not like the Cubs odds this year. I am kind of embarrassed by them.
No. Well, my main bird of the week, I'm going to complete the baseball trifecta of main birds. I'm giving my main bird to Joe Buck, who, of course, a lot of affiliations to the city of St. Louis, but called play-by-play, started his career with the Louisville Redbirds, one of their affiliates, Bird.
That's what you went with?
Yeah, I don't know. I think
His dad is like one of the most famous.
I'm aware. But I'm not talking about his dad, am I? I'm talking about Joe Buck. I'm not talking about Jack Buck. So I went with the Joe Buck
That is
bird
great.
connection.
Man, that
Right?
was awesome.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Joe Buck is coming back to baseball. He's going to call the first MLB game on ESPN. It's the Brewers, my favorite team, and the Yankees. I think this is cool. I like Joe Buck's. I know I'm not the biggest baseball guy compared to you two, but I always loved Joe Buck's calls for Fox in the playoffs and stuff. And so it'll be cool to hear him on a call. I will have to be listening to this, and hopefully it's a Brewers win he's calling.
Very fun timing because ESPN announced that their partnership with MLB will end after the season. Also, like it is the first national game, but he did broadcast a Cardinals game last season on TV, but that was just on Valley Sports.
Oh, I feel like I remember seeing that. Maybe we did a quick hit on it. I don't know. I'll ask you two quickly. How should I feel about the Brewers? I feel like I'm like I've been looking at a lot of their like young their what is it, farm system people, like players that have come up, which is probably what I should be focusing on. I think.
I'm not too high on Jackson Chorio. I
Well,
think
you're
he's a
dumb.
bust, quite frankly. It's funny that this game is going to end with Devin Williams closing out his former team, like in his first game.
Oh yeah.
This is also the Trent Grisham Bowl, so lots of cool stuff going on in this game.
Yeah. All right. Payton.
He should have kicked. This is
yeah.
ridiculous.
Can we just remove him?
Taking shots at everyone here.
All right. Well, I'll remain, I guess, pessimistic about the Brewers, or hopeful for the future. Best
you
things
could win the division. It's a pathetic division.
It is still a bad division. That's all right. Well, Payton, what did you learn this week? Speaking of baseball, more baseball.
Best thing I learned this week, on the day of recording, Mizzou is playing UCF just in a road non-conference game. But then the next 3 days after that, the 21st, 22nd, 23rd, Mizzou is going to be competing in the Andre Dawson Classic. Pretty cool. The game against Florida A&M on February 21st, Friday, at 7 p.m. will actually be on MLB Network. Their games against Alabama State and Southern will be on MLB.com. I think this is a really cool tournament to see them be a part of. Carrick is, of course, a former baseball head coach at Southern, so pretty cool. I think this is a very cool thing that Mizzou is a part of.
It honors HBCUs, and you think about it, like Mizzou isn't an HBCU, but they do have the first head coach in SEC baseball history that is Black. So that is a massive thing, just massive step forward for that, just at the head coaching position, especially I mean, I don't think anyone's better at baseball than the SEC. So to see that happen and Mizzou being a part of this is massive. Even though they aren't, an HBCU like some of these other historic schools. I will point out, just on maybe a damper the mood. I looked up the current score of that UCF Mizzou game, and Mizzou is trailing 7-1 in the top of the seventh.
Oh no!
Boy, they're not.
So not only is it very cool they're participating it, they kind of need the wins.
Yeah,
need to if they can make a run through the SWAC, some SWAC schools in there, but yeah, that is cool. I look forward to. I'll have to put the one on MLB Network on for sure. Kenny, what did you learn this week?
Best thing I learned this week. I think these are fun. Trent Burns did like a little interview with Mizzou basketball, just kind of telling people about himself, and he loves basketball, of course, but he also likes Legos and Fortnite. He said Wemby should play him in a movie, which I found pretty funny. is the guy that you haven't been able to see this year, and you won't. I mean, there's probably a 0% chance you'll see him this season even if he's healthy. But definitely, under radar, not even under the radar. I think under the radar in terms of recruiting, he was a little bit. But he's like, this like big man that everyone's been talking about. You'll get to see next season. But back to the Legos, and he says he's from Cyprus. There's a website out there that I frequent that tells me I'm from Cyprus. And then like just the Legos and Fortnite. I mean, I'm practically Trent Burns, and I don't think Wemby would play me in a movie. I think he's a little too tall.
He's also hurt, out for the year.
I like ice cream too. And we know Trent loves ice cream. He came on the show and told us that.
Yeah, I was gonna say this isn't the first Trent Burns interview you can listen to. Go back. I forget which date it's from. It was a while ago, but we did talk to him. Great interview with Trent. Yeah, I was gonna say he's kind of you guys with the Legos.
Yeah, you think he's a Lego Star Wars guy, Kenny?
I feel like he's maybe some like Technic stuff, like some cars and we get some different ones in there.
He needs to hang out with.
What website were you talking about, by the way?
I don't know, but I'm looking at. I just tried to find like our video, so our interview, if anyone wants to watch it. And I found Trent Burns highlights of him playing at my high school.
There you go.
Oh, St. Thomas.
He is
probably
twice the size of everyone on the court.
Yeah.
The Eagles.
Oh, there you go. He's got the cross country shirt on.
What website says you're from Cyprus?
Moving on. Trent Burns should hang out with Tyler Booker, Alabama's left guard. He's also a big Lego guy. My best thing I learned this week, maybe if you're, I don't know. I guess it depends on your view. It's maybe more of a headline, but my best thing I learned relates to spring games. Texas and USC are becoming the latest couple of programs to cancel their spring games. There's kind of a wave of them getting canceled. I think Nebraska's done it. Florida State, I think, canceled theirs. So a lot of bigger time programs. Steve Sarkisian was on the Up and Adams podcast and talked about it. I think he said he wants to do more of like an OTAs thing for some of the draft guys and stuff. But, a lot of coaches have cited like injury concerns and just like, lack of attendance. It doesn't actually bring in that much money. What do you guys think of this? Should spring games be no more?
Man, I'll tell you what, Trink really was a trendsetter, huh?
Yeah,
he was canceling and minimizing these games 4 years ago. No, but I really don't like this. I don't really get the real reasonings behind it. Like Nebraska, I think, said, well, we don't want to put anything on tape. Like, that's such a flimsy excuse to me.
It's a team that got Williams Swinneri like within hours of him.
Yeah, just weak sauce excuses. Just I don't get the real benefit to canceling these. They're just supposed to be fun little exhibitions that give people, just get their feet wet with the team. I don't really. It's college football in general is just heading in a direction I just hate. Really, I'm never gonna stop watching it. No, nor is anyone. But I kind of get like why so many people are turned off by college football, because it's just stuff like this is just so weird and dumb, and it really sucks. I saw
a thing, Kenny. Like, feel free to weigh in too if you have a take. But like someone said, like for some people this might be, as like Payton said with college football, the prices keep going up. Like tickets get more and more expensive. For some people, this might be like a free spring game or a cheap spring game. The only chance they get to see the players play in person. Like, I don't know if that, if you can't afford to make it to a game, you get the chance at least to before the season, like see them in person. I don't know. Yeah, it kind of sucks. Kind of sucks for the fans.
Yeah, I was going to say it is definitely more of like a fanfare event to do that kind of stuff. And I never really thought about it, from a financial perspective for anyone who, just wants an opportunity to see this team play, especially when ticket prices are going to be an all-time high with a lot of the changes that they've made within the athletic department, and just where this team is just in terms of the level they're playing at. You're going to fetch higher prices on tickets. I think you maybe substitute it, open up some practices. You definitely can have practices on the field at Faroe, just on Faroe Field, and open some of those to fans, and maybe just have like a fanfare, like a big one. Because I think one of the biggest things too that maybe fans love is they get to go on the field after the game, and meet these players. I think that the autographs and photos and just getting to be around them, especially like for kids, it's very like inspirational for them. And so I think that's definitely something that they Mizzou and maybe some other schools can open the door too. And Mizzou did a thing like last year where they opened it up in the summer too. So maybe that's an additional one they'll do again and just give fans an opportunity to see it. You don't have to do a full game. Just a light scrimmage is probably just the way to go. And everyone will pull like the injury card too. You don't want to go too full force anymore in anything you're doing if it's not an actual game.
Yeah, it's go ahead, Payton. Go ahead.
I completely agree with the like getting on the field, getting to meet players, getting an autograph or something. That's how I got all the signatures on the helmet behind me. After the one spring game that Mizzou, the first spring game they actually ran under Drink. So you're asking fans to contribute more than ever
And get less.
to NIL, to rising ticket prices, just to everything like that. Canceling things like this that are exclusively for fans. I don't get it. I don't understand it. It just feels very disingenuous to do that to me.
We're gonna lose spring games. We're gonna lose court
To
storming.
me, he says.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it is an entertainment.
I meant like to me, like it feels disingenuous. To
Just to him, Payton wants to go on to every spring game. What were you saying, Kenny?
It's an entertainment business. At the end of the day, you have to protect your product as much as you can. And maybe you don't like the way I'm saying that, but that's definitely what it is.
Yeah, no,
that's making money for the university, and you don't want to risk anything. And but sometimes you do have to get back to the people that are paying you in order for them to continue to pay you. Right? Sometimes you have to cut some losses and move money around and figure that out. But sometimes you owe it to them too. And Mizzou's been good about that. You've heard a lot of coaches, they literally start every single press conference with their support for the fan base.
Yeah. Good fans. All right. That's all I have. Joke, Payton, do you have one to end the show?
I sure do, Jack. This one comes from our favorite TV series, The Today Show. Guys, how do celebrities keep cool?
They hang out with Ice-T.
Oh, that's a good guy.
No, that's
Ice
not
Cube?
correct. No, not correct.
What is it?
They have many fans. That's how celebrities keep cool.
All right. Speaking of this, did one of you sign me up for like a joke of the day, Florida's funny email list?
I didn't.
I got added to one. It's called Jokes, and it's like a really weird email. jokes@smtp2.floridansfunny.com.
Jesus.
And it doesn't tell you to answer. You have to click on the link. And I
Is
don't
that
wanna...
the site that thinks you're from Cyprus?
No, this is a different site. But I don't know. Someone signed me up for this. It's
me.
called Florida's Funny, but the address on the email is Sparks, Nevada.
Yeah,
I think you should probably.
we should
throw that in
probably
your
unsubscribe
junk
to
folder,
that.
man.
All right, if we still have a YouTube channel tomorrow and it doesn't belong to Florida's Funny, then we survived this. All right, that'll do it for the Unwritten Rule. We'll see you next time. Enjoy the Arkansas game. We'll be back to recap it. I've been solo screened. All right, bye.